The following is a WRHU special program. If you want talk, games, and fun all rolled into one, well, you've come to the right place. This is The Game Show, where host Bradley Clarke and his special guests talk about the world of television game and competition shows. But Bradley's guests aren't here to just talk. They came to play a game as well. What will today's topic be? What game does Bradley have planned? There's only one way to find out.
It's time to start the show.
You heard the man. Welcome to The Game Show. And here's your host, the Bradster himself, Bradley Clarke.
It is time to start the show. Thank you so much, Austin Angelo, and welcome to another episode of The Game Show, the talk show about the world of television, game, and competition shows. I hope you all enjoyed my last 3 episodes devoted to Survivor Game Changers, but if you thought my Survivor-based episodes were over, think again, because for the next hour, I am thrilled to be talking about Survivor with one of the game's most notable players.
I think it says a lot about Survivor that 19 seasons in, we still found somebody who in one season cracked the top 5 most notorious male villains of all time, and that's Russell.
I am King Russell from Samoa. You can call me the puppet master, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them all doing whatever I want them to do. If I tell them to run, they're going to run. If I tell them to stop, they'll stop. And when I'm finished with them, just throw them in the trash.
I am the king of hidden immunity idols. I ain't finished playing just yet. Keep hope alive.
You don't hand the enemy the idol, especially when his name is Russell Hantz. You don't do that. That's a no-no.
That's right. On the line with me for this episode is 3-time Survivor castaway and host of the Russell Hantz Show podcast, which you can now hear on iTunes and SoundCloud. This is Russell Hantz. Hey, Russell, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm wearing my Survivor Heroes vs. Villains t-shirt, so you know it's going to be a great interview with you.
Are you really? You ain't lying to me, are you?
Nope, I'm not lying to you.
Okay.
You know, it's funny, when I checked my emails the day that I saw that you were interested in doing this interview, I was just finishing up watching Survivor Amazon, and literally Jenna just won. So I think it's some sort of sign.
Yeah, Jenna, she's a good player.
She is. She's a very good player. She outwitted them all, including Rob Sesternino.
Yep.
So here's how I thought we would do this. We're going to go traveling through your seasons together. So I'll ask you a few questions about Samoa and Heroes vs. Villains at Redemption Island. And then we'll, of course, talk about Survivor Game Changers and next season's theme, Survivor Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers, or Triple H, as I call it. But before we start with the Survivor questions, I do want to say that I am a huge fan of your podcast, The Russell Hantz Show. Tell our listeners why you decided to make a podcast.
Well, it's funny because I've always wanted to get into radio even before Survivor. I wanted some kind of radio station where you can speak your mind, you can say what you want to say and not get in any kind of trouble. So a producer from L.A., Mike Lawson, called me up and started to talk to me about doing a podcast. And I'm like, man, that's kind of right up my alley. He was kind of shocked that I said that. But then we started the podcast, and right off the bat, we started climbing up the charts. We went all the way to number 9 and number 3 in Australia. I like it because I can say whatever I want to say. I can bring Brandon on. We do a recap on The Bachelorette, which is weird because me and Brandon doing The Bachelorette makes it even more funny. But we sit there and we talk about The Bachelorette, about the guys, and we can do it without getting in any kind of trouble. So it's definitely the kind of show that you won't hear anywhere on any podcast anywhere. I can guarantee that.
And I like that you speak your mind, because that's what you're known for on Survivor. And actually, speaking of speaking your mind, later on in the show, I have a little game for you, and it's all about speaking your mind.
Sounds fun.
All right, so let's start with Samoa, where you were introduced to America on Survivor. This was season 19. Now, on your first episode of the Russell Hantz Show, I remember you talking about watching the different seasons beforehand and saying, why aren't the castaways going out and hunting for idols without any clues? Because they're out there somewhere.
Right. I was with my ex-wife at the time, and my kids were watching it, but they didn't really understand. They were young. And I was like, man, why ain't they doing something? Because they got all that time, all that 24 hours, they can be looking for idols. You know, if they put idols in place, then they can look for them. It's like, what are you doing? You're just sitting around doing nothing. So I was, you know how you holler at the TV yourself all the time watching these reality shows. I'm sitting there saying, look for the idol, stupid. Do something, because you're being filmed 24 hours a day. So they get footage. What do you think they get? You know, you're not there scheming all day long. You run around, you have hours. You might scheme for 1 hour of the day, each person. With me, maybe 2 or 3 hours of the day. But then you have all that downtime, tons of boring downtime. So I just started looking for the idol.
If I could find that idol, then that would be genius. In history of Survivor, how many people found the idol without a clue? 0. I'm looking for the immunity idol. These people are so ignorant. Everybody's standing in the same spot. I'm in a big old hole in the tree. I don't want to look suspicious, but it surely does. So I look in the tree, I look up. I almost passed out. I seen it sitting there. So I reached up there, yanked it down, got it loose, put it in my underwear, turned around, just walked off. The wonderful immunity idol.
They had no clue what was going on. Production didn't know. The cast didn't know that I was looking. So, I can remember production being, what are you doing? I'm looking for the idol. They said, what do you mean? They didn't know what I was about to do. It's never been done before. I kind of changed the game forever, but that's another topic. So, they didn't know what was happening, and they were so confused because I kept looking for them. And finally, they were like, in their mind, I know when a light bulb went off, if this dude finds an idol, he's going to change this game forever. And then they started asking me questions about it. You know how production works. So
of course.
What are you doing? Because every time they ask you a question in any kind of show that you do, you have to answer that question with a statement. Like, the sky's blue, right? And then you say, oh, yeah, the sky's blue, and this is why, so you answer with a statement. So they would be like, what are you looking for? I'm looking for the idol. Explain to us why you're looking for the idol. So then that's when you see me saying, how many times in the history of the game has somebody found a hidden idol without a clue? 0. That's when you see me saying that. So then I started looking. Production did not show me anything. That show is so real. Mark Burnett wants it to be real. He wants you to suffer. Like, for instance, Redemption Island, I was the star of the show, me and Boston Rob. I was voted out early because he allowed it to happen. Now, when you're dealing with production, they might edit the way they want, but what you say is what you say. What you do is what you do. So they can edit how they want to edit it, but you're the one that did it, so they edit it how they want. And I got the villain edit because I was a villain.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that this show is actually real, because I still think a lot of people don't realize how real this show is, because you have so many scripted reality shows now, but this is still the core of reality, Survivor.
Yeah, and, it is real. The thing is, I found the idols on my own. Nobody showed me anything. Nobody came up to me magically and said, hey, Russell, why don't you start looking for idols without clues? We can make a great episode. It doesn't work like that. Now, MTV, fate. Kardashians, fate. When I did my show with A&E Flipped Off, I sat there with Willie from Duck Dynasty, and he told me straight up that they have scripts. Duck Dynasty literally has scripts that they follow each episode. Now, their personalities are real. All that's coming out, and it's fun to watch, that people's crazy, funny personalities. But reality TV is scripted, and Survivor is one of the only lasting shows that's the real deal. Survivor's real, people. I mean, you go out there and you suffer. That's why you have beauty queens eating rats. And that's why you have, back when I played, they didn't give you rice and beans. You got beauty queens that, Natalie White wouldn't even eat fried chicken. She wouldn't even Popeye's fried chicken. She never ate it before in her life while we were on the show. She was eating rats because she was starving to death. I lost 60 pounds my first season.
Wow.
60. You don't just lose weight and they got you a salad bar right there behind the cameras. It is the real deal, and it proves it time and time again when you watch it. When people cry, when you see all them sad episodes and they're crying, that's real. Because you're getting beat down so much every day, rain, you miss home. You're mentally out of who you really are. And when you see your loved ones, it brings everything back home, and it breaks your heart. It makes the toughest man in the world cry when that day happens.
And for you, especially seasons 19 and 20, which were filmed back-to-back, you barely had a rest before doing Heroes versus Villains. You said it was, 10 days?
Yeah, I had approximately right around 10 days. Once I was home, they got me off the show, and I stayed in Samoa for quite a period of time, maybe a week after the game was over. Everybody flew back. I was still in Samoa after season 19. So I'm sitting there, and everybody's gone. Everybody's already back home, and I'm still there. What they were doing was, they didn't get a definite yes from me, and I was sick. And I think they didn't want to ask me at that point in time. I did say that I played during the season, Mark Burnett, and Jeff hasn't talked to me about it. So in that period of time I was there, I tried to eat. I was seeing the doctor. I mean, I was sick, and I had E. coli. It was bad. So I went straight from that sickness straight back. Because I don't know if you remember in Heroes and Villains, I wrestled all my life. I was a powerlifting champ. I won the state championship in powerlifting. I went to nationals, all this stuff. A lot of people don't know that kind of stuff about me. I broke the state record in the squat. So the things that I used to do when I was younger was aggressive things, being able to grab onto people and stuff like that. Well, in Heroes and Villains, they did a challenge to where you held a stick and you had to knock people off with a stick on
Sure,
that thing into the mud. You remember that?
Yeah, sumo at sea, right?
No, it wasn't on the sea. Ours was in the mud.
Well, yeah, the challenge is called sumo at sea because that's where it originated, but they did it in the mud. It was the challenge where your tribe got decimated.
Right. And that's the kind of thing that I would be able to do. That's right up my alley. And all my friends know it. And when I did it, I'm with my friends watching. They was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, dude, I was so weak and sick and throwing up, and I couldn't do physical challenges anymore. It was done. So it's all real, trust me.
Oh, I can only imagine. Now, if you were on, say, a Brains Brawn beauty season, I figure you wouldn't want to be on the beauty tribe. So between the Brains tribe and the Brawn tribe, which tribe would you rather be on? Because really, you could be on either one of those tribes.
Yeah, that's a good question, and nobody's ever asked me that question. I think that I would be on the Brains tribe.
I do too.
Because, you know, you have your different type of players. You have your real social players or your only social players, kind of like Natalie White. And then you have your best of your best social players, like Parvati. And then you have your physical players, kind of like me. But then you have your really physical players, like Ozzy. Then you have your strategic players, kind of like Sarah. Then you have your real strategic players, kind of like me. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know, that's a good thing for Survivor to have, the tiers. Because actually, when I was listening to your podcast episode where you were interviewing Coach, there were different tiers you were talking about, especially with the Survivor Legends rumor that's going around. With the different tiers, like who is on the top tier, who's the middle tier, who's the bottom tier.
Right.
And with Game Changers especially, we can get some more into Game Changers later, but to me, there was a lot of lower tier people, if you can call them lower tier people. Do you agree
I don't
with
even
me?
know if you can call... I mean, look, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody that's played the game.
Oh, me neither.
The thing is, if I don't like the way you play, I'm just going to say it. You as a person, hey, we can go out, have a beer, whatever. That's fine. But I'm going to call a spade a spade. And I'm going to tell you what's real. And some of them players weren't even fourth tiers. What I put it like, Coach put it in tiers. I put it like professional, college, high school, and junior high. You know, we had some junior high players, which is the bottom thing. Doesn't get no lower than that. We had some junior high players playing ball. It did not make any sense. And you know what? They opened with the worst ratings possible. That kind of stuff happens when the public thinks that you're trying to bamboozle them. You can't throw something out there like a name Game Changers and think that's just going to stick. And a bunch of people that we don't even know that's out there. The Heroes versus Villains was an amazing cast, I think. Overall, 80% of that cast, I think, was the real deal.
Oh, I agree.
When you look at that cast, that's almost a legendary cast.
Sure.
You know, you had Rupert, you had Coach, you had Boston Rob, you had Parvati, you had me, you had JT was there, which they say is a game changer. He screwed that all up. But Sandra, you had some major names in that cast. James, Big James, you know, and that's when they did it right.
Right.
That's when they really did what they knew the fans would like. Then all of a sudden they just throw out a name and throw out a bunch of people.
Yeah, and especially when I saw the Game Changers cast, I'm saying to myself, okay, so I saw Sari. I'm like, okay, good. Sari's on the cast.
Right.
Then you had Tony. Ozzy. Yes, Ozzy.
Ozzy belongs there.
Definitely.
You had Tony. Tony was on the edge. Tony's an all-star. He was on the edge of being a legend, and that's done. He's not a legend now. He was one of the ones I would put on the edge. Now, if CBS is super fans of Survivor, then they'll do it right. They'll do what the public wants, or what the viewers, the fans, what they want to see is what's real. I have tons of haters out there, tons. But they were all shocked. Everybody was shocked when I wasn't on that season. Everybody. I got 1 million phone calls.
Were you asked?
Nope.
Not even asked. Wow.
Not even asked.
You made my list, because when I saw the Game Changers theme, I made my own list. It was kind of almost majority Heroes versus Villains people, but of course I'm going to put all those people on there.
Right. And, you know, the crazy thing, you could listen to some of my interviews when I got off of Samoa, and, you know, I was in the zone always. You know, I was King Russell forever. When I just got off them seasons, I admit I let some of that get the best of me. And, I wasn't the person that I am today. And I'm a better person today because of all this stuff. Because of me losing track of who I am, I'm a better person today. But I can remember doing some interviews saying talking about season 20, saying I changed the game forever. And they asked me in my pregame interviews, I told them I was going to change the game. Before I even played the game, I told them I would change the game forever. And I said, I'm going to change the way people view the game. And they say, Russell, this is exactly what Lynn Spielman told me. Everybody says that. Everybody says that. And I'm like, you'll see.
Well, also, you know what I liked about Heroes vs. Villains is that at the time, they took people from the whole span of the Survivor series. And a lot of the people on Game Changers were very recent, especially the 4 Ko-Rong. I'm not a big fan of that. I think if you're going to say Game Changers, and then especially at the beginning when the intro came on the first episode with Jeff Probst saying, over the course of 33 seasons, there's been many game-changing moves or whatnot. These are the players that have changed the game. And then you show some of this cast, and you're like, what? What? That was...
Right. It was funny to me to see him say that because he's not a stupid guy. Jeff's brilliant. And he's sitting there saying things that he does not even believe himself. And he doesn't believe that they're game changers. Look, I like Caleb. I think Caleb should have played again.
Sure.
But not on a season called Game Changers.
Right.
Maybe evacuees or something.
In Philippines, they had the 3 contestants.
How did Sarah change the game?
Right. See, my thing is, I think Sarah got on because of Tony. And they wanted to see if they would clash again. That's what I think they do now, is they try to find people that have past relationships. Even on Heroes vs. Villains, even though the cast was great, you had, of course, JT and Coach. That was a pair. You had 3 people from China on that season. You had Jerry and Colby. That was a notable pair. That's what I think they try to do.
Yeah, I think they try to do that, too. But, I mean, how much energy and good TV are you going to get out of? You're going to get it out of Tony, for sure.
Right.
But how much are you going to get out of Sarah?
Right.
You're going to get exactly what you just seen. I mean, she did great. She made big moves.
Yeah.
But big moves nowadays isn't big moves when I was playing. Big moves when I was playing was you're loyal to your alliance, and you try to make big moves until, of course, at the very end, top 5 or so. But Sarah's flip-flopping and stabbing everybody in the back to get to the end, which is feasible to do it that way, and that's okay.
Right.
But, it's just not the same anymore. Everybody just stab. That's the only moves is the big moves, it seems, nowadays.
I feel like Survivor's almost in like a fad phase. You have the fad of the big move, and then maybe you'll bring back the fad of trying just to survive. Or like what you did, you find idols and you find an alliance, and you use it for your good or for an alliance's good.
Right. People don't realize what I really did. They still call me the biggest villain to ever play, and I'm starting to not like that because, I was a villain, but in 2 seasons, in season 19 and 20, my alliance didn't do worse than 6th place on both seasons, including Shambo. So it's like I take my alliance to the end of the game. In season 19, I could have had them jump off bridges for me. The final 4 went to the final 5. We were a team. That was the best team I've had. And we stuck together. And what villain does that? I wasn't about to stab them all in the back. Yes, I got rid of Jason. And you know why? For a reason, to beat, was it Eric? No, not Eric. What was his name that started winning challenges?
Brett?
Brett. To beat Brett, and he was weak. So that's the only reason I got rid of him. I did it for a reason. I didn't do it to stab him in the back. And guess what? He made the final 5. And Jerry, in my next season when I aligned with her, she made the final 4. She hates me with a passion. Now, if I would go up to her and say, Jerry, let's make a deal. Let's promise each other we'll bring each other to the final 5. After that, that's what everybody says. Everybody's like, hey, you make it to the final 5, I don't care what happens after that. Well, Jerry, I brought her to the final 4. I bet you she would make that deal because I didn't hand her a check for $1 million. She's mad at me because she would have won the game. She knows she would have won. I asked everybody. So I try to do what's best for my game at that point. And I did, and now you hate me forever. That's just a bitter person,
Right. And also a bitter jury, too.
Yeah, so everybody talks about my social game. Both times I played, everybody loved me. My social game was so good. Sandra was going up to them, get rid of Russell. He's the one. Guess what? They didn't believe it. Because I was such a nice guy. They didn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. That's why they never got rid of me. But people don't look that deep into it.
Right, yeah. Now, who were you surprised most that you didn't get a vote from in either season?
My first season, I thought I was going to get
John, yeah.
Dave
Ball, yeah.
I got Dave Ball. I thought I was going to get their respect because they would come up to me, man, you're playing the best games. I thought I was going to get Jay Sawn's vote in season 19. I thought I could swing one of the girls. I thought I was going to get Jerry's vote, but everybody knew I thought that. And she even said when she was getting voted out, Russell's an amazing player. He's crazy good at this game. Or, you know, she said something like that when she got voted out in her last confessional. And then what happened is she goes to Ponderosa, and they all drink and talk, and then that's where they change their votes. I guarantee you, if Ponderosa would have been separated from the very beginning, I would have won season 19.
I'm not a big fan of Ponderosa either, especially because the game is still live.
Right. And the thing is, Ponderosa, trust me, I'd rather have a bunch of people there at Ponderosa because my last season is the first time I experienced Ponderosa, and I had a great time because it's just a big, long vacation that you can relax. It's not good for the game. Yeah, it's fun for you personally, but it's not good for the game. You know, you go there because of the game. When somebody talks negatively about me, I'm not there to defend myself. So it throws it out the window. I think the reason they don't do it is because it's cost-effective. But all they would need is an individual handler for each person.
Yeah.
You know, each person get their own handler, and then that's it. You have that one person to talk to the entire time, or send them home. Everybody knows it's not live now. Send them home. You're worried about everybody thinking it's still live. Everybody knows it's not a live show anymore. They want you to think that. But everybody knows it's not. So you get voted off, go home. Then they could save tons of money.
True. Yeah, and it's all about money now, especially because now they film seasons back-to-back in the same location.
Right. The reason they do that is because they save tons of money because they already build their roads. I mean, they go in these places and they build roads. They do all kind of stuff for these towns. And they got to get to the spot that they want to get to, and usually that's in the middle of nowhere because they don't want the public around. So they got to build roads and this and that, so they already have that in place. When you hear that they're doing Fiji again, that's because they are already established there. They got their equipment there. They're established there. So what they do instead of saying Survivor Africa or Survivor Fiji, Samoa, like they used to do, they call it a named season. So that way they're able to save money and stay in the same spot.
There was a lot of different twists and advantages in Game Changers. Are there any that you hope that will reappear or hope don't reappear in next season?
I like that stuff. I like the way that now a new thing when you have the idol and it's a tie vote. Do you know anything about that new rule?
The one where if it's a tie vote, then there's no revote? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah. I mean, how did they throw that down?
Well, what it does is if there's a tie vote, then you don't revote. And you go straight to the discussion portion where everyone can have a discussion, and if there's no unanimous decision, they go to rocks. Now, the point...
Oh, I see. So that makes it, yeah. I remember talking to it about somebody, but it's been a while, so that's why I started discussing it, because I liked it, because that makes it dangerous for you to tie the vote with me there, because everybody wants to throw a tie out there because they think I poop idols. Like season 3, I get voted out right off the bat, and they have the idol in their pocket.
Right, Ralph had it.
Right, Ralph has the idol in his pocket. They still split the votes.
Right, it was 3-3-3.
Yeah. So with us, all we needed one person to flip.
Right.
So with that is dangerous. That's really dangerous because you're going to draw rocks. And then the odds at Vegas says one of you are going to draw that rock to go home, not me.
Yeah.
You know, because there was only 3 of us. They split the votes. There were, 8 or so of them.
I also like that twist. It adds a small wrinkle, but it's effective enough, which I think they should try to do more is add those small wrinkles and not necessarily these big advantages that will try to force big moves, like the Exile Island thing where you get to choose one of 3 advantages. First of all, the Exile Island thing was ridiculous, in my opinion. Did you like...
Yeah, it didn't really go anywhere, actually.
Yeah. And they were just spewing out advantages. If you hide them, like the fake idol kit I thought was a really interesting advantage to present someone. But when you're just giving them a choice and explaining them all, and, oh, here you go, just for picking the wrong buff.
Right.
Here's an advantage. That proves nothing. You need to give them some sort of challenge to get an advantage.
That's production trying to get way too involved. You know, that's why the show was better back in the day, because production didn't do that. It was just one idol, it's sitting over there, and the clue was hidden amongst whatever. You know, you get the clue first, and then you find the idol. Now you got a clue to the clue to find the idol.
Right.
Now, why do you think they did that? I'll tell you why. Because this guy called Russell Hantz changed the game, so they changed everything about idols.
Right. And there used to only be one idol on Exile Island, and then when that was played, they reintroduce it into the game.
Right.
But actually, your season, Samoa, was, besides China, was one of the first seasons that hid idols at camp.
Right.
And that's what led to what is today, with all these idols in every single camp. And now there's 3 tribes with each one have an idol and all that jargon.
Right. You're pretty knowledgeable on Survivor, huh? Because China did hide it at camp on that sign.
Yeah, in China, the idols were hidden on those pagoda entranceways to each of the camps. And yeah, I consider myself a huge fan of this game. I know a thing or two when it comes to Survivor.
Okay.
I have been a loyal fan for years and years and years. A definite super fan.
Right.
In fact, I actually wanted to mention this at the beginning. This is not just because I'm talking to you, but to me, you should have won Samoa, hands down.
Yeah. Yeah, it was plain old pitiful. And if they gave a Century Award of the most bitter or somebody that should have won something that didn't, I would win that award.
Yeah. Well, you won fan favorite twice, so the viewers speak for themselves.
Yep. And you know what? The fans, they won't vote for somebody they don't like. You know, if they don't like you, they ain't voting for you. So by them voting for me says that they liked the way I played. They liked that I was almost you respected the villain, you know? The kind that you respected. They're sitting at home saying, I would play like that. That's how you play. You know, so I think that's why I got the respect from the fans.
Right, yeah. Speaking of votes in Final Tribal, when the season is over and Jeff Probst leaves Tribal Council saying, we'll see you back in America to read the votes, are you sequestered? Like you can't talk to anyone, or is everyone talking?
Right there you can start talking. Everybody starts talking right there.
Oh, okay.
Right when that happens, everybody's buddies. I remember right when that happened in Heroes and Villains, I was emotionally out because I just played 2 times in a row. I know a lot of people do it, but they don't do it like me. You know, I played mentally, man, my mind wouldn't stop racing because I just played 2 times in a row. Thought I won season 19. And so when they said, okay, I'll see you back in L.A., and he gets up and walks off, Rupert gets up, everybody starts talking. Nobody's talking to me.
Oh, really? So no one talked to you?
Oh, no. That's how bitter they were. It wasn't just a game. If it was just a game, then why are you so mad at me? On season 19 and 20, they completely avoided me. I was the guy that just sitting there by myself and nobody talking to me. Like literally sitting at a table by myself where everybody else is talking.
Do you think you would have had a better chance of winning if the new open forum discussion at the Final Tribal Council was in play either in Samoa or Heroes vs. Villains?
Oh, yeah. I like that forum a lot better.
I do,
in my
too.
Case. And I think that's why Jeff did that. And you know what else he put in place that kind of reminiscent of me? When he says, there's 3 different aspects, and I said this time and time and time again, that you have to vote on. Outwit, outlast, outplay. I said that, Jeff. I said it in my speech in 19. There's 3 different aspects that you have to vote on. I said strategically, socially, and physically. And then I started breaking it down. Physically, I beat Brett when he needed to be beat. I'm the one that took him out at the end. Socially, I had this whole team together the whole time, and we went all the way to the end socially. Strategically, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. I admit my strategic game is 10 times better than any other part, but I had all the 3 aspects, and I broke it down if you listen to my speech in 19, and that's just what Jeff just said on Game Changers.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't talked about Redemption Island yet, so here's a question regarding that season. Redemption Island brought up an interesting point, whether you would play again or not, because after you lost the duel against Matt, you said you would never play again. Is that still happening? You're not playing again?
Well, right now, I have my podcast, and we're doing extremely well with it, and there's just so much involved in that. You know, I would have to desert my podcast for 50 days. That's approximately how long you're gone from the time they take your phone, approximately 50 days, and I raised my son, and he's 12 years old, so I would have to talk to every single one of my family member, the podcast. I mean, it would be tough, but I would debate it, but that's not something I can just be like, oh, I'm playing. I would not have played Game Changers knowing the cast, because it would have been stupid. If they would have asked, I wouldn't have played.
Really? So now, when they get in contact with you, I know in Heroes vs. Villains, you mentioned on one of your episodes of your podcast, that they asked if you wanted to come back the following season while you were still playing Samoa.
It was just production I was talking to. It wasn't Jeff and it wasn't Mark Burnett, the ones that make the decision, and it wasn't CBS. They make those decisions. They didn't tell me it was Heroes versus Villains. They say, hey, would you be interested in playing again? I was like, yes. So they say, okay, we're going to do a tape, and we're going to send it to CBS, because ultimately CBS makes the decision. I mean, you can sit there and argue, and Jeff they respect Jeff, so he gets a lot of leeway. But if they want somebody to play again, they're playing again. So, that's why you see people like Malcolm over and over, because he's loved by CBS. So it's ultimately up to them. So, I made that decision.
What were you thinking when they asked you if you want to come back? Was there a theme that you thought may have been in place?
I knew it was Heroes versus Villains.
Oh, you did?
I told him, I said, Heroes versus Villains, right? He's like, how'd you know that?
Wow.
I said, because when I did my tape, all I did was look for Survivor stuff when I was doing my tape and trying to get on the show. When I do something, just like my podcast, I am all in. We're promoting it like crazy. We're doing a lot of things with the podcast because I'm all in. And when I played Survivor, I looked and looked and looked and looked on everything. And I seen that a rumor, how they have these things that you can look at of the next season, Heroes versus Villains. And I knew I was going to be a villain. So I was like, well, I told my buddies, look like I'm playing 2 in a row before I played the first one.
Wow. So if they would have asked you for Game Changers, you would have said no to the cast. But how far in advance do you think you would know the full cast?
You don't supposed to know until you see them.
Right.
But, they must have people camping out at some sites, at some hotels, because some of the casts are released pretty fast. So, of course, you got to look. If you're playing, you got to look. So I would have found out who the cast was and before I would have made my decision. And then I would have asked them, is this true? Because I'm not playing Game Changers with a bunch of duds. It's just not going to happen.
Right,
and if they do a legend season, it has to be legit. You can't have Sarah out there and tell me she's a legend, because she's not.
Right. Would you play a legend season?
That would be the best option to get me, because it's the real deal. And if it is the real deal, like I discussed that list on the podcast with Coach.
Sure, yeah.
If it's like that, then that guy that made that list, I'm going to have him on the show. Because that list, what did you think about that list?
I thought it was a very good list because you have legendary players on that list like yourself and Sandra and Suri and Boston Rob, but you also have legendary players that span the course of Survivor's history, from Richard Hatch, the first winner back in Borneo, to more recent players like Tony. I've seen a lot of lists that had, who would be great all-star seasons, who would be great second Heroes versus Villains, but looking at that list, which also includes Rupert and Parvati and Rob Sesternino and Stephanie LaGrossa, among others. I really, for the most part...
of course you're going to agree and disagree with a few, but man, that was solid.
Right, just like Heroes versus Villains. There was a couple that you disagreed with, but for the most part, it was a good, solid list. And there was a lot of information that you could back up with. Unlike Game Changers, where it's like, what information do you have to back them up with?
Right. It's something you can say, well, this person did this and this. But that list, it had really high-tier players. If you're on the bubble, then that's fine. But they got some people that's just not on the bubble. Richard Hatch is not on the bubble. To me, Johnny Fairplay's not on the bubble. Boston Rob. Sandra's not on the bubble. I know people are shocked they keep hearing me say that, but she's a 2-time winner.
Right.
No matter how she won it, she's a 2-time winner. She's going to be on Legend. And Ozzy's not on the bubble. Coach is not on the bubble. You got some new players. Aubrey. I think that she has a shot to get into a Legend season now. Did extremely well 2 times in a row. Everybody's like, they talk about too many heroes. And it's not our fault that a bunch of Legends is on Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah.
They could have a Heroes versus Villains Part 2 with exactly the same cast, and it would be a huge season.
Sure, yeah.
And people were like, what? They're doing a Part 2 of a season? That sounds pretty damn interesting, actually. Then you throw us out there with people that's watched my season, people that you stab these people in the back to get what you needed to get, and now here you're on the same island in the same situation. So it just doesn't make sense that people don't agree with that. I mean, there are very few. I think people would really think that was interesting if they did something like that. Would that be a season that you would think, wow?
Oh, absolutely. And come to think of it, I wish I'd come up with that one because I'd really like to see a season like that.
I just saw that just now, but as we're talking, I'm thinking of it, and it's like, man, if they dropped us off with the exact same people and we're like, Part 2 and let's go, I just wonder what would happen. Will Boston Rob go early? Can I convince them to keep him again? We're on the same tribe this time, again. So who's going to believe him? What's Jerry going to do this time? I took her to the Final Four last time. Did she get rid of me early? Then she goes early herself? But we just do the same thing we did before and go all the way to the end, because that would be my argument. Jerry, I want to do the same thing. Same exact thing. Let's do the same thing. You agree with that? You okay with that? Because you went for it. My way worked. If you go your way, we don't know if it's going to work. Go with Boston Rob and see how that works for you.
See, that's a theme and a twist that is so unique and interesting. A season that the same players were on and put them back out there again, and let's see how this time it works. Because the first time we already know. That's something that I think they should really explore. If they can get, and don't do it like what they did Game Changers. Don't call it Game Changers, and you can't get Game Changers, but they're still going to call it anyway with these returning players. Get a cast. It doesn't necessarily have to be heroes versus villains, but any cast that every single player is willing to go back out there and
I'm
do
going
it
to talk
again.
about this on my next podcast. If they don't hear this one on this one, then I'm going to talk about it because that is an amazing season.
Yeah.
You're going to get, because in production standpoint of view, you're going to get all the people that stopped watching because of the stuff that they're doing now. You're going to get them to come back because they love Heroes versus Villains, the biggest season they've ever had, not in numbers, but in popularity. One of them anyway. And then you're going to get tons of viewers back. It's like, okay, now this is interesting. Part 2. You've seen it. You've heard it. Let's do it again.
Let's do this. Let's go to CBS and let's get this straightened out. We should be part of the producing team.
We should get paid a little bit on the side for coming up with it.
That's right. And you know what it should be? It should be a very older season. Because if it's recent, then we just seen it. But if you get the whole cast of Australia, or if you get the whole cast of the Amazon...
Oh, that would be so interesting. Gabon. I'd love to see all them play again.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed Gabon, and I've been waiting for so long for the winner of that season, Bob Crowley, to play again, because I'd love to see him defend his title. But there were only 3 players from Survivor Gabon who have ever played again, and they were Sugar, Randy, who was on Heroes vs. Villains.
Right.
And you also had Corinne, who was on Caramoan.
It would be so interesting to see a repeat season.
Yeah.
How come all these geniuses in CBS ain't thought of this yet?
See, it needs the best player ever, Russell Hantz, and a Survivor superfan, Bradley Clarke, to do this.
Right. Now we change the game again.
Right.
Would you play with me?
I would play with you, yes.
Because when you're a true superfan of the show, you know how I work. I'm not that hard to figure out, guys. I'm not. And as a father and as who I am, my personality, I'm extremely loyal to my friends and my people. Extremely. To a fault. You mess with my people, I get upset, and I don't let that happen. I try to protect always. I'm a protector. I'm a father. So that's how I play. You know, I've always done that. Yeah, I'm going to be aggressive to the other side of the people. Let's get that going. We could do a +1.
Yeah.
We'll do the cast +1, and I'll bring you along with me.
Awesome. That would be awesome.
But I like to cuddle with my alliance, though. Just letting you know ahead of time.
As long as I'm not on the...
Every time I say that, it's like, as long as... Wait, there's always an added...
No, as long as I'm not on the chopping block, that's fine with me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
I can promise you the final 5. Would you take that?
Yes. On the first time around, a final 5 would be excellent.
Right. You know, I promised Jerry the final 3, okay?
Yeah.
She was in the final 4. Well, she was inches away from winning $1 million. If you remember that challenge, she almost grabbed it before me, all 3 of us, me, Parvati, and her. We were blindfolded. Now, she was inches away. So if I told her, you know, I'm getting ready at Final 4, you got to win this challenge, she had a shot, her own shot, and she would have taken me to the end because I was so aggressive. Everybody was taking me to the end, except for Sandra. Sandra probably still would have got rid of me. That's how dumb she is. But, hey, she's a legend. She won twice. She would have voted me out. That's a good question if you ever have her on your show. Ask her if she would have voted me out if she would have won that last challenge. And she'd probably say no now, but I know she would have voted me out. She was trying to hold Tom. So that would have been a terrible move because I wasn't getting any votes.
So if Sandra, Jerry, and Parvati were the final 3 in Heroes vs. Villains, who would you have voted for on the jury?
Parvati, easy. The thing is with Parvati, she didn't do near as much as me, and especially the stuff that they showed wasn't near as what they showed it to be, like when she gave them 2 idols. Look what she did. She didn't know what she was going to do that night. That wasn't her plan that night. When she gave them 2 idols, the only reason she did that is because of me. She was confused because she was giving the idol to Sandra. Nobody knows this, but I was going to save this for my podcast, but I guess I'll say it now and my podcast.
Sure,
but
double dip.
Right, nobody knows this, but I talked to Amanda. To make a long story short, I ain't going to give you all my juicy info, but make a long story short, I talked to Amanda on the beach. Amanda, I convinced her to tell me who they were going to vote for. Amanda's such a good player. As soon as she told me it's going to be Sandra, I seen it in her eyes that she just made a mistake. She knew she made a mistake by telling me. So we're about to get locked down. What that means is they're going to lock down everybody. You can't talk. That's how real production is. They make you shut up until you get the tribal council. So you can't change anything, and then all of a sudden they don't have footage of what you just changed. So I seen Amanda know she just made a mistake. So I made sure to watch her that whole day. wasn't long after that. She was going up to everybody, and she changed the vote. Now, I done told Parvati I think it's going to be Sandra. Well, when I was watching Amanda change everybody's mind, and during the lockdown, they locked down, I seen her go and whisper. I seen her mouth say Jerry. I read her mouth say Jerry. So I went to Parvati. Now, we're locked down now. Locked down, can't talk. And now I have to tell Parvati some way that it's going to be Jerry, not Sandra. So that whole time for hours, I'm looking at her saying, Jerry. And they said, Russell, stop it. Stop it. And I'm like, Jerry, it's Jerry. Like trying to tell her, it's Jerry. That's why, and they give her so much credit for this, that's why you don't have any footage of Parvati saying she's going to give 2 idols that night. She gives 2 idols. I did that again. I made that move. So I even went to production and said, hey, because I didn't know if she was going to do it. If she goes, gets up, and gives an idol, now I just think she has 1 idol. That's another bad move by her, because all of a sudden you're about to play 2 idols, and you don't even tell me that you have 2 idols. So immediately you're going to have me on your bad side. So, she's not that type of player. So she was saving that idol to get rid of me later. So I went to production and said, if they go and, because I wanted to know the rules, if she goes and tries to give an idol to somebody, can I stop her and say it's going to be somebody else? So what my plan was to stop her. No, I was going to look like a freaking genius, because I would have been like, no, it's not Sandra. It is Jerry. They're voting for Jerry. Give it to Jerry. I was planning on stopping her, giving it to her. Then when I said the right thing, then she would have looked bad. I would have looked good if she wouldn't have gave it to Jerry. So she was so confused at this time, she gives it both to Sandra and Jerry.
So did production actually tell you what was the rule, if you can tell her?
Yes, I could.
Oh, you could? Okay,
said,
good.
If she gets up, you can get up. If she doesn't hand it to her, and if she doesn't have it in her possession, by the time you get to them, you can stop her giving it to her and convince her to try to give it to somebody else. It's up to you. They were like, you can do that, but if she has it in her hand and she hands it to Sandra, it's Sandra's. You can't take it from Sandra and give it to Jerry. She has to give it to Jerry. So I was going to shut it down right there. So, people, there you go. She made one of the biggest moves, right? One of the biggest moves in the game. Oh, Parvati playing them 2 idols makes her a genius. Well, guess why?
It's because of you.
Isn't that crazy?
Look at that.
That's how it really went down.
Well, thank you for sharing those Survivor secrets with myself and the listeners, and I hope to hear more of those little secrets on your podcast.
Yeah, I was going to save that, but you got me all riled up.
I did I drilled information in.
Right? That's what you do. That's why you be so good at the game.
See, I'm playing Survivor when you don't even know it. This is Survivor.
That's right.
This is actually not the game show. This is actually Survivor. We're auditioning myself, and I'm showing you my tricks.
Right.
So that when we go on the +1 season, or it could be like a fans versus favorites, but blood versus water-ish. So you have a returning player and a fan, and they're playing together.
Right.
That's what it could be. See how many seasons we can pitch to them? We already got 2 ready to go.
Right. Let's do this.
Now, before we get to the game, I have one last question, and it relates to heroes, healers, and hustlers. And by the way, I know that you are planning a big Russell Hantz Show podcast episode for the premiere in September of Triple H.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it's new people. I was going to go to L.A. this time, but, I don't like going over there with people that have anything against me. All these new people, they don't know me personally. I haven't talked bad about them yet. So the first episode, we're going to be airing it live. We're going to Facebook Live, all that stuff. I'm going to invite every single survivor that I know that lives in L.A., and we're going to find some nice venue and have a live premiere party. It's going to be a big deal.
Well, that sounds so exciting, and I can't wait to see it. And from the promo that they've already shown, the season looks interesting. It's more like a Worlds Apart, but they needed to give it a different name. So I'll be interesting to see your take.
The name again.
Yeah, the name again. Heroes versus healers versus hustlers. And speaking of the word hero in there, with heroes versus villains, the way that they described heroes was for the purpose of the game. In that these were the heroic people that have played before, and these are the villainous people that have played before. But this time it actually goes on professions, not actually your motive in the game. So do you think that the word hero coming up again in a season is degrading heroes versus villains? And this is not to degrade the heroes that are on this season, because
I don't think so, because this is like a legit hero. We were heroes in the game. These are heroes in real life.
Right.
I can distinguish between the two, and I'm sure the fans will too. Now, they should do some legit hero thing, like people that went into the 9/11 buildings, and they should do like legit heroes. I'm not saying heroes aren't cops and firefighters, because they are, but the ones that done heroic moments, that had them moments that we would know of, and have them on there, and then the healers that would know of, and I did this, some doctor cured this or cured that. You know what I mean?
I agree. That's how they should have constructed it. And while you were talking about that, I actually thought of another good idea for a season. So hear me out.
Here we go.
So remember in Cook Islands and in Panama, they separated by 4 tribes?
Yeah.
So for a Heroes-themed season, there'll be 4 tribes with members of the military on one tribe, firefighters on another tribe, police officers on a third tribe, and doctors and nurses and EMTs on another.
All right. That would be neat.
So you can call it Survivor Heroes Tribute or something.
Well, you could do a military one.
And more military,
Air Force, Marines, Army.
See, that's what they should have done, instead of put like healers and hustlers.
Right. It's a perfect time to do some kind of military-type season. Can you imagine the challenges? They would be aggressive.
Sure.
Then you have the world watching and see who's going to win. Coast Guard, Air Force, Marine.
You'd have a backing
Army.
from every single branch of the military.
Right.
All right, so that's season number 3. So
right.
we're just popping them out.
Yeah, and it seems like they have a tough time with it, but we just did it within 30 minutes.
Exactly,
We just named 3 amazing seasons within minutes.
That's right, yeah. I wonder how long it took them to come up with heroes, healers, and hustlers.
Right. The hustler thing, that's a little much. They're just trying to find a word for H. But the hustler, I mean, what's a hustler? What's a hustler that you know of in life?
Gamblers.
Right.
Pool
Gamblers,
sharks.
Somebody that hustles on the street. That's how you use that word, hustler. Well, I guess waiters, and that's where they go in that route.
Yeah, I can see it in that aspect, but I feel like hustlers is too harsh of a word.
It is a harsh word.
Yeah, hustlers.
Because when you think hustler, he's a hustler. If you had a son or daughter and you found out that their boyfriend or girlfriend's a hustler, I'd be like, no way.
Exactly.
Oh, he's a hustler. Oh, really? Oh, so you know the streets, huh, boy?
Yeah.
I'd have a problem with that.
I hope that next season turns out well. I just hope that, because with these themes, especially with the 3 tribes, what they like to do is very early on, they will switch up the tribes and combine tribes and form new tribes. What I loved about Heroes versus Villains was that you went as heroes and villains until day 25.
That's right. We did it right. It
kept
was
the
all
theme.
right, the whole thing.
Yeah, you kept the theme until it was about time to do the merge. Coach was the first person on the jury, and that was
Well,
before...
we did the same thing in season 19, too, with Samoa. They used to do it right.
Yeah.
But now they try to throw all this craziness in there.
Right, yeah. I was talking about themes because the themes are basically thrown out the window within...
What they do is they call it evolving. That's what Jeff likes to call it. Oh, it's just the seasons are evolving, this, that. No, what's happening is you're trying to bring numbers back up. And
Right.
it's just not working. They're going down.
Yeah, that's...
Last time numbers went up drastically is from season 19 to season 20.
Right.
That's because they used to know what they were doing. What they need to do is get some fresh minds in there.
Like us.
Right.
Let's go to CBS and hire ourselves for the new creative genius positions.
I'm only doing 3 or 4 podcasts a week, so I'm take the job.
We're going to build the biggest fan-driven Survivor empire anyone could ever dream of.
We could go out there, just pack all the stuff in one car and just head to L.A., and me and you could change the world.
That's right, yeah. Bring back Survivor.
The reality TV world.
That's right. Bring Survivor back to its core.
Right.
Well, we've come to my favorite portion of the game show. Now, in every episode, I like to play a game with my special guest. And Russell, since you're my special guest today, are you ready to play a game?
I'm ready.
I'm glad to hear you are, because this is the game of the day.
Game of the day.
And Russell, I know from watching you on Survivor and from just talking to you that you love to speak your mind. So I thought, what a better game to play than an actual Survivor challenge where speaking your mind is the point of the game. This is Touchy Subjects. Touchy Subjects. Now, are you familiar with Touchy Subjects from Survivor?
No.
Well, Touchy Subjects...
They did that on Survivor?
Yeah, this is the game. So here's how this works. This is the actual challenge used in Survivor, in which Jeff Probst asks the castaways a series of revealing questions about their tribe mates. You remember that?
Yeah.
So what
I remember something like that.
Right. So for your version, I'll be asking you a few Survivor-themed questions that I've always been curious about, and
Okay.
I want to know how you're going to answer them.
Okay.
So there's no winning or losing in this game. This is just for all those listening at home to hear what you would have to say from these questions.
Just kind of like juicy details.
Yeah, so there's no luxurious reward you're going to play for in this game, but the good news is since you can't lose, there's no way you can be sent to Exile Island.
Okay, that's good.
All right, it sounds like you're ready to go, so let's play Touchy Subjects. And here comes your first question. You ready?
Ready.
Based on their previous seasons played, who did not deserve to be on the Villains tribe on Heroes vs. Villains?
Parvati.
Really?
Mm-hmm. She wasn't even on the tribe till the last second, too. If you look at her colors, she was supposed to be a hero, and they changed her the last second.
Oh, really? So who was going to be the other villain?
It was going to be Natalie.
Oh,
Remember Natalie?
From Micronesia?
Yeah. She was actually at Ponderosa waiting to play.
Really?
Yep, she was there.
Here comes your next question. Which castaway that you've played one of your seasons with do you most call a friend today?
Oh, if you'd asked me a year ago, it would be a lot different than it is today. But I would say, I guess somebody I can count on the most maybe would be Monica Padilla.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, and she didn't even vote for me.
That's right. Were you a big fan of her going into Second Chance?
Yes, I was. I did some interviews, and I tried to help her get numbers so she can play again. She's told me that, she was young, and you were able to influence her a lot more, but she told me that she made a mistake by not voting for me.
Interesting, wow. I think a lot of people made a mistake.
That's because of Ponderosa, because they changed their mind over there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people made a mistake of not voting for you.
Right.
All right, next question. Who is the most overrated Survivor player?
Sandra. Easy. She is so overrated. You know how I can say that? Because I played with her. I seen her in action. And guys, I give credit where credit's due all the time. But she does nothing. She did nothing. They brought her along, and everybody brought her to the end because they thought they could beat her because she does nothing. Now, the third time she played, she actually did something. She was actually playing the game. She was trying to take control of the game because in her mind, it was a bunch of washed-up people that nobody knew that she could control. So she wouldn't have never done that if it was been a Legend season. She would have done the same gameplay. But she tried to actually play the game, and that's what happens to Sandra when she plays the game. Instead of what usually she says, as long as it's not me, that's her thing.
My game is pretty simple. As long as it's not me, I don't care who goes home with you. I really don't.
Right.
Well, she didn't do that just now on Game Changers. She actually played. But when she played, she goes home.
I also think that the players that were on Game Changers did influence that, because on Heroes vs. Villains, you had so many great players that she could sit back and she could latch on to. But with this one, she actually had to make moves and take control of some of her tribe mates because they weren't going to do anything.
Right.
So that's how I see it as well.
But trust me, she's happy with people not doing nothing. If you don't do nothing on Survivor, you're not a threat. If you're not a threat, they'll bring you along to the end, and you'll not win most of the time, like Troy's in just now. He didn't do nothing. He goes to the end. Sometimes you win not doing nothing. Natalie White wins. Sandra wins. That's his strategy. An actual, real strategy, don't do nothing. Just sit around and don't do nothing, and just do what everybody tells you to do. And you can go a long ways that way, but on the most part, nobody remembers who you are. But it didn't work like that for Sandra. She got really popular by not doing nothing. And I don't even know why she was trying to get rid of me. I wish they'd release some off-the-camera scenes of me telling her, Sandra, what are you doing? I'm legitimately trying to take you to the end of this game. Like, I want you to go to the end with me. But that's what I want. I want to take you to the end of this game with me. Why are you trying to vote me out, girl? And then that's when you hear her saying, Russell thinks he can beat me at the end. I don't know about that. You see, those little comments like that tells the whole story. I don't just tell a story. I tell you why the story is real when I say it, because I have proof. It's like a court of law. I have evidence. They said this because of this. I can't just say like Natalie White tried to do. She tried to say, that was my whole plan the entire time, that line with an aggressive person. Well, Natalie, show me the evidence that was your plan. Now you won. It's easy to say that since everybody else is telling you that.
All right, here we go. Next question.
Okay.
Now, on the podcast, you mentioned that if you were given the opportunity, you would love to play with Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other player that you would like to play with or against in a future season?
I'd like to play with Big James again. I never got to play with him because he was on the other side. As soon as I got there, he wasn't there anymore. I'd like to play with James, but I'd like to be on his same alliance because I don't know if I want to go head-to-head with physical challenges, even though I did, and I'm the one that took him down. Remember?
That's
I
right.
took him down with that knee. That was me that pushed him.
That's right.
Russell hanging with James. James takes a hard hit. Big battle down below. Danielle comes up with it.
You all right, James? Uh-oh, something broke.
I took the giant down. It's like David and Goliath. But if you watch it, I'm concerned. I kind of flinch to catch him because his knee was popping out of socket. It looked weird.
Yeah.
Because they were like just flopping around. He really messed up his knee. For years after that, I remember seeing him, and it was just messed up.
Well, then they retired that challenge.
Yeah, that was a rough challenge, boy. That was rough. First one was way worse, though, when I did that same challenge in 19.
Yeah, Schmergen Brawl. That's what the challenge was called.
Yeah, it was, Smurgan Ball.
Well, that was also the challenge where Ben got kicked out.
A big battle on the ground. Ben, stop! Ben, out of the challenge.
First time in the history of Survivor, somebody's been pulled out of a challenge. Take a spot here, you're done.
What was your thoughts when Jeff Probst, for the first time ever, pulled
I don't
someone
know
out
why
of
they
the
kicked
challenge?
him out, because I was getting elbowed to the face after that, and nobody kicked John out. It was like everybody was just rough.
Yeah.
But the person that I would not want to play against is the obvious, people like Laura or Laura's daughter,
Sierra.
because they're not even playing the game. They're just coming after me, you know?
Right. Well, that's what happened in Redemption Island, I feel, too.
Oh, that's what happened, yeah.
Now, last question for the Touchy Subjects game. Which Survivor player do you most respect how they played the game? It could be
That
from...
I played with, or...
It can be your season. It could be just from being a fan of the show.
I think one of the most impressive wins that wasn't like a personality type deal was Kim.
Kim from One World.
The winner of Survivor One World.
Yes, I think she played an amazing game. And crazy thing is, when she stabs somebody in the back, they're her best friends still today. And that takes a strong person to be able to get stabbed in the back and to be able to still do what they're supposed to do.
When I asked you which players do you hope to play with one day, I was hoping you'd actually say Kim. Because I feel like you two would be one of the strongest pairings in Survivor.
Right? If she trusted me, then we would be dangerous. Dangerous.
And from the seasons you played, who would you say you respected most? Besides yourself.
Right? Yeah. From all the time I played, it has to be Parvati. Now, I downplay some of the moves because they weren't really the moves. They were my moves. So I do downplay some of the moves, but Parvati is the most, I said this on my podcast, I don't know if you heard it, a CBS main executive tells me when she walks in a bar or room, she oozes sex appeal.
Yes, I did hear that one.
Right, and what she does is she's so charming, she can truly stab you in the back and be your best friend afterwards.
Right.
Like when I say I'm one of the top strategical players, when it comes to socially, it's crazy how it works. She's just the most charming person I've ever met in my life. So, that's it.
And that was the game of the day, Touchy Subjects. Touchy Subjects. Thank you so much for playing that game.
No problem.
Well, Russell, thank you so much for taking the time to talk Survivor with me on this episode of The Game Show.
Oh, no problem at all.
And I wish you so much success with your podcast. One more time, tell the viewers how they can listen to it.
It's on iTunes. The name of the show is The Russell Hantz Show, and it's also on SoundCloud. We're going to be putting it on YouTube as well, but we're out the box, and there's no podcast out there that you're going to hear that's that true and real.
Well, I can't wait to hear many, many more episodes. And once again, congratulations on all the success the Russell Hantz Show podcast has had so far.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And you're always welcome to join me on the game show anytime you want to talk Survivor with me.
All right, no problem. It was fun.
Well, I had fun as well, and from a true fan like myself, thank you so much for all the great,
no problem.
for all the great entertainment and for all the great years of Survivor that you've given me.
I appreciate it. If ever I play again and ever you see me step foot in that winner's circle, it's going to be probably one of the greatest moments in reality TV history.
Truly game-changing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get an actual game changer to win.
Right.
And whenever you want to go and pitch our Survivor season themes to CBS, just give me a call and I'll be there.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's just go tomorrow.
That'd be nice.
All right. We'll plan a Survivor pitching road trip.
All right, just come pick me up.
You got it.
Get on the way, and I'll head out there with you.
We'll be on our way to CBS pitching our 3 seasons.
It's a long ride, though.
It's worth it in the end for all the great ratings that we're going to get.
Oh, and we'll never stop talking, just kind of like this show here.
Yeah.
We just talk the whole way there.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have plenty of Survivor stuff to talk about in that car ride. All right, well, thank you again, Russell, for coming on the show, and take care.
All right, no problem.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Game Show. A big thanks once again to 3-time Survivor castaway and host of the Russell Hantz Show podcast, Russell Hantz, for taking the time to come on the show and talk with me about Survivor. It was truly an honor and a pleasure. And tune in next time for another exciting talk about television game and competition shows right here on The Game Show. I'm Bradley Clarke, the Bradster, saying bye for now. All of the Survivor clips and sounds used during this episode of The Game Show are courtesy of the CBS Television Network.
This edition of The Game Show was created and produced by Bradley Clarke and was recorded at the WRHU studios. This is Austin Angelo speaking.